Before Marvel Rivals, before any superhero game that started getting massive budgets, and before any comic book character got their own live service game, there was this weird little PS2 game called Justice League Heroes. And if you're anything like me, you either played it constantly as a kid or completely forgot it existed, which is honestly kind of crazy because looking back, this game was actually trying to do something really ambitious. It lets you play as Superman, Batman, The Flash, Green Lantern, Wonder Woman, Martian Manhunter, even Zatanna, and a bunch of other Justice League characters in a giant co-op action game. It was basically DC's answer to Marvel Ultimate Alliance, but the problem was nobody talks about it anymore. Whenever you discuss great superhero games, you hear Arkham, Spider-Man, maybe Ultimate Alliance, maybe X-Men Legends if you really dive deep, but Justice League Heroes is almost never part of the conversation. And honestly, I think it's a little unfair because while it definitely had a lot of flaws, it also did a lot of things right. So today I want to revisit Justice League Heroes and talk about what made it special and maybe why it got overshadowed and why I think a modern version of this game could actually be a huge success. But if you guys don't know me by now, I'm Mr. Frosty Flames, but you can call me Mike. We do anything gaming news, reviews, playthroughs, analysis, and we do it in a chill way with no over editing BS. So if you like that style of content, be sure to hit that sub button and join the Mr. Frosty Flames Legion. Anyways, let's get back to the video. To start, I just want to say that one thing that younger gamers might not realize is that superhero games used to be everywhere. The PS2 era was loaded with them, and some were great, some were awful, and some were just in between. You had games like the original Spider-Man 2, you had Ultimate Alliance, you had X-Men Legends, you had the Hulk, Batman Begins, Punisher, etc, etc. There were superhero games constantly releasing, and Justice League Heroes arrived right in the middle of all of that. The problem was that competition was insane. If you wanted attention in that era, you had to really stand out. But unfortunately, Justice League Heroes got lost in the shuffle. But one thing about this game that I really liked and I feel like the developers really nailed was the roster. Because let's be honest, who doesn't want to play as Superman or the Flash, Batman, Green Lantern? The game really understood the fantasy of just being a Justice League member. Every character was really powerful, every character had very unique abilities, and swapping between them was genuinely fun. Even today, there's something cool about watching Superman punch giant enemies across the screen. You know, the roster wasn't perfect. I feel like they could have switched some things around or maybe added a few more characters. I absolutely love that they added Zatanna into the Justice League. It is a unique take, but I feel like it delivered on the fantasy of just being a Justice League member. And to be honest, that's one of the most important things a superhero game could do. And on top of that, you have a co-op experience, because this is where the game really becomes nostalgic for me, because Justice League Heroes was simply fun with friends. Remember when couch co-op was really big back in the day? Remember sitting next to somebody and playing through an entire game together? This game was built for that. It's like we don't even get games like that anymore. Like the last one I played was Split Fiction and A Way Out and maybe the Lego games, but that was it. That's something nowadays that we've kind of lost because everything is online. Everything is matchmaking, everything is battle passes, live service, etc. Justice League Heroes was just two people sitting on a couch beating up bad guys with a chill, low-key story. It's simple, but effective. Now, if you played this game or seen gameplay of it, there's a huge elephant in the room, and that's Marvel Ultimate Alliance, because every Justice League Heroes discussion eventually comes back to that game. And honestly, I think that's fair because Ultimate Alliance was bigger, it was more popular, it was more memorable, it had a larger roster and just more recognition. And for real, it just had more content. In general, it was just a better game. But I don't think Justice League Heroes was trying to beat Ultimate Alliance. I think it was trying to give DC fans their own version of that experience. And in many ways, it succeeded. The problem is that history only has room for so many winners, especially with gaming. And Ultimate Alliance became the superhero team-up game that people remembered. Even to this day, people are like, man, Ultimate Alliance 3 sucked, but we could get something back then, you know, we could remaster those old games, bring them back, or just make a new one that's so much better. That's what people wanted Marvel's Avengers to be, sort of like an Ultimate Alliance, but maybe like modernized, but it just sucked. And you know, People remember Ultimate Alliance, but they don't remember Justice League Heroes. And another thing I really appreciate about Justice League Heroes is how comic book-ish the story feels. If you guys don't know me, I'm a huge comic book fan. I have hundreds and hundreds of comics, and I collect all of them. Marvel, DC, Image Comics, everything. And this game, you've got Brainiac, you've got Darkseid, and you've got other major DC threats. This game understood that Justice League stories could feel massive, and they should. The stakes were high. The villains were very recognizable for the time, and the action was over the top. Was the story really amazing? Not really. It was sort of generic, but it did feel like a Justice League adventure. And for a PS2, game, that's very important. And this is where the game sort of struggled, I think, because some of the flaws were definitely out there. There were a lot of flaws in my opinion, like the gameplay is one. It could be very repetitive. And when I went back and played this game, I was like seeing the camera wasn't always great either. It was bugging out a lot. It was glitching. I couldn't see things a lot. And some levels actually dragged on longer than they needed to. I was like, man, this should have been over by now, but it's going on and on and on. And when I played Marvel Ultimate Alliance, I compared the two, and I felt like Justice League Heroes lacked a lot of polish. And just in general, when compared with some of the best action games of the PS2 era, it did lack polish. Now, don't get me wrong, these issues don't ruin the game, but they do explain why it never became an instant classic of the PS2 on the level of, say, Marvel Ultimate Alliance. No, it's a good game in my opinion, but it's not a perfect one, and that's an important distinction that explains why it is where it is right now. And honestly, this is the reason why people forgot it, I think, and that's timing, because this game launched in an era packed with superhero releases that were feeling generic. Marvel was becoming bigger as like a franchise. Ultimate Alliance dominated conversations, man. That was the go-to co-op superhero game. And while all that was happening, it seemed like Justice League Heroes was just fading away and people just forgot about it. Not because the game was bad, it just didn't leave a huge cultural impact that Ultimate Alliance did or other superhero games. And that's a shame in my opinion, because plenty of people who actually played it remember having a great time, including me. And even looking back at it from 2026, I actually think the concept that it had was a little ahead of its time. Because think about how successful superhero team games are today. Think about how much people love playing as their favorite heroes. I think the concept is solid. Marvel Ultimate Alliance and Justice League Heroes nailed it. The technology just wasn't quite there yet. Modern hardware could do so much more with this formula. Say if they made a game similar to that in the modern era. You would have bigger levels, better combat, online co-op, more heroes, more customization. The possibilities are endless. You just need the right devs, because it seems like modern games that try to do this formula milk it with live service slop. Like Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League tried to do it with this formula, but they made it like a looter shooter live service. Same thing with Marvel's Avengers, man, that sucked. It's the same concept, but it just sucked. And even Gotham Knights, which was probably the best out of the three that I mentioned, but it still was just generic and it sucked. You need a good development team to actually make a game like this and make it work. And this is why I say DC should try this again, because this is the part that surprises me, because why hasn't DC tried this again with specifically a Justice League team? Because a modern Justice League action RPG feels like a no-brainer. You have Batman, Superman, Flash, Green Lantern, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, Martian Manhunter, all playable, and probably even more. You could have online co-op if you really wanted to, and you can even do character progressions, loot systems, raids, boss fights, everything else. This idea practically sells itself, especially now that superhero gaming is way bigger than ever. I feel like this could work, and ultimately that's why I wanted to make this video. Not just because you forgot about Justice League Heroes, but it's proof that this formula could work nowadays. The foundation was already there. It just needs modernization, maybe a bigger budget, better combat, more content, and that's it. The blueprint already exists, and honestly, I think it would be incredibly successful, because if Marvel could have Ultimate Alliance and Marvel could have Marvel Rivals, then there's no reason DC could have its own modern superhero team-up game. The audience is there, the characters are there, the demand is obviously there, they just need to do it. And in the end, I think Justice Justice League Heroes isn't the greatest superhero game ever made. Obviously, it's not perfect. It's probably not even close to being perfect, and it's definitely not as famous as some of its competitors. But I do think it's one of those games that deserves to be remembered because beneath its flaws was a genuinely fun idea, a game that lets fans live out the fantasy of just being part of the Justice League. And honestly, that's something worth celebrating. Maybe it will never get a sequel or a game like it. Maybe DC has completely moved on. Hopefully Injustice 3 is next. But every time I revisit Justice League Heroes or see that cover, I come thinking the same thing, that this deserved another chance. But that's just my take on it. Let me know what you guys think down below. Did you guys ever play Justice League Heroes? Do you guys know about it? Let me know in the comments down below. But that's going to be for today's video, guys. If you like this video, make sure you like, share, comment, and subscribe to join the Mr. Frosty Flames Legion. Mr. Frosty Flames out. Ciao.